I should like to account for Morel's behavior. Faustine tried to avoid him. Then he planned the death of all his friends, so that he could achieve immortality with Faustine. That was his compensation for having renounced all of life's possibilities. He realized that death would not be such a disaster for the others, because in exchange for a life of uncertain length, he would give them immortality with their best friends. And Faustine's life, too, was at his disposal. But my very indignation is what makes me cautious. Perhaps the hell I ascribe to Morel is really my own. I am the one who is in love with Faustine, who is capable of murder and suicide. I am the monster. Morel may not have been referring to Faustine in his speech. He may have been in love with Irene, Dora, or the old woman. But I'm raving. I'm a fool. But of course, Morel had no interest in them. He loved the inaccessible Faustine. That is why he killed her, killed himself and all his friends, and invented immortality. Faustine's beauty deserves that madness, that tribute, that crime. When I denied that, I was too jealous or too stubborn to admit that I loved her. And now I see Morel's act as something sublime. My life is not so atrocious. If I abandon my uneasy hopes of going to find Faustine, I can grow accustomed to the idea of spending my life in seraphic contemplation of her. That way is open to me to live to be the happiest of mortals. But my happiness, like everything human, is insecure. My contemplation of Faustine could be interpreted, although I cannot tolerate the thought of it. If the machines should break, I do not know how to repair them. If some doubt should ruin my paradise, certain conversations between Morel and Faustine and some of their glances could cause persons of less fortitude than I to lose heart. If I should die, the real advantage of my situation is that now death becomes the condition and the pawn for eternal contemplation of Faustine. I am saved from the interminable minutes necessary to prepare for my death in a world without Faustine. I am saved from an interminable death without Faustine. When I was ready, I turned on the receivers of simultaneous action. 7 days have been recorded. I performed well. A casual observer would not suspect that I am not a part of the original score or scene. That came about naturally as a result of my painstaking preparation. I devoted 2 weeks to continuous study and experiment. I rehearsed my every action tirelessly. I studied what Faustine says, her actions and answers. I often insert an appropriate sentence so she appears to be answering me. Do not always follow her. I know her movements so well that I usually walk ahead. I hope that generally we give the impression of being inseparable, of understanding each other so well that we have no need of speaking. I am obsessed by the hope of removing Morel's image from the eternal week. I know that it is impossible, and yet as I write these lines, I feel the same intense desire and the same torment. The images' dependence upon each other, especially that of Morel and Faustine, used to annoy me. Now it does not, because I know that since I have entered that world, Faustine's image cannot be eliminated without mine disappearing too. And this is the strangest part, the hardest to explain. It makes me happy to know that I depend on Haynes, Dora, Alec, Stover, Irene, and others, even on Morel. Arrange the records. The machine will project the new week eternally. An oppressive self-consciousness made me appear unnatural during the first few days of the photographing. Now I have overcome that. And if my image has the same thoughts I had when it was taken, as I believe it does, then I shall spend eternity in the joyous contemplation of Faustine. I was especially careful to keep my spirit free from worries. I tried not to question Faustine's actions, to avoid feeling any hatred. I shall have the reward of a peaceful eternity, and I have the feeling that I'm really living the week. The night when Faustine, Dora, and Alec go into the room, I managed to control my curiosity. I did not try to find out what they were doing. Now I'm a bit irritated that I left that part unsolved, but in eternity I give it no importance. I have scarcely felt the progression of my death. It began in the tissues of my left hand. It has advanced greatly, and yet it is so gradual, so continuous, that I do not notice it. I'm losing my sight. My sense of touch has gone. My skin is falling off. My sensations are ambiguous, painful. I try not to think about them. When I stood in front of the screen of mirrors, I discovered that I have no beard. I am bald. I have no nails on my fingers or toes, and my flesh is tinged with rose. My strength is diminishing. I have an absurd impression of the pain. It seems to be increasing, but I feel it less. My persistent, deplorable preoccupation with Morel's relationship to Faustine keeps me from paying much attention to my own destruction. That is an unexpected and beneficent result. Unfortunately, not all my thoughts are so useful. In my imagination, I am plagued by the hope that my illness is pure autosuggestion, that the machines are harmless, that Faustine is alive, and that soon I shall find her, that together we shall laugh at these false signs of impending death, that I shall take her to Venezuela, to another Venezuela, for my own country with its leaders, its troops, with rented uniforms and deadly aim, threatens me with constant persecution on the roads, in the tunnels, in the factories. But I still love you, my Venezuela, and I have saluted you many times since the start of my disintegration, for you are also the days when I worked on the literary magazine, a group of men and I, a wideful, respectful boy, inspired or on battered trolleys. My Venezuela, you are a piece of cassava bread, as large as a shield and uninfested by insects. You are the flooded plains with bulls, mares, and jaguars being carried along by swift current. And you, Elisa, I see you standing there, you and the Chinese laundryman who helped me. And in each memory, you seem more like Faustine. He told them to take me to Colombia. We crossed the high plateau in the bitter cold. The Chinaman covered me with thick, velvety leaves so I would not freeze to death. Well, I took Faustine. Why, look at Faustine. I shall not forgive you or forget you. And I thought I did not love you. I remember that when the imperious Valentin Gomez read us the Declaration of Independence on July 5th in the elliptical room of the Capitol, we showed our defiance by turning to stare at Tito Salas's painting of General Bolivar crossing the Colombian border. But when the band played our national anthem, we could not suppress our patriotic emotion, the emotion I cannot suppress now. But my rigid discipline must never cease to combat those ideas, for they jeopardize my ultimate calm. I can still see my image moving about with Faustine. I've almost forgotten that it was added later. Anyone would surely believe we were in love and completely dependent on each other. Perhaps the weakness of my eyes makes the scenes appear this way. In any case, it is consoling to die while watching such satisfactory results. My soul has not yet passed to the image. If it had, I would have died. I, perhaps, would no longer see Faustine, and would be with her in a vision that no one can ever destroy. To the person who reads this diary and then invents a machine that can assemble disjoined presences, I make this request. Find Faustine and me. Let me enter the heaven of her consciousness. It will be an act of piety. The end.